we talk about the deep state, we talk about the globalists,
inflation versus deflation.
Well, I mean,
you're at Mar-a-Lago.
I'm baffled that this isn't front page news.
Do you guys support a specific political party, or do you dislike both of them?
Oh, it worked like a charm on you guys.
Let's go, Brandon.
What's up, guys? Sorry about the delay. We had a little Wi-Fi issue where my buddy Humberto just turned off the Wi-Fi like 5 minutes ago, exactly when this was supposed to start. But it's okay. When life gives you lemons, you make lemonade. So a lot of interesting stuff to talk about tonight. So I don't know. Tim Pool's just like destroying himself. I don't know if he's being told to say things or if he's just making bad decisions. But we're gonna take over this 8 o'clock slot once he is fully dismantled. And we got this stupid thing that came out of nowhere today where Jeff Bezos like launched his girlfriend into space, and I almost think I mean I didn't look into this at all. We're gonna check it out, but I like who was driving first of all, like that could have been a disaster. And like I almost was wondering like if he was trying to get rid of her, because I mean that'd be a pretty solid way to do it if he was trying to break up and he was afraid to break up. And what else we got? So serious problem. Nobody's talking about it, that the Fed is literally already setting up a bailout plan for hedge funds. Yeah, this $240 trillion market worth of liabilities, 240 trillion, more than all the money in the economy. And the Fed's putting together a potential $2 trillion bailout plan because these hedge funds like Citadel are out of control. So I'm going to give you the rundown on that. What else? And then stupid Janet Yellen came out and said that both manufacturing coming back to America is a pipe dream and it's not ideal. All right, got some stuff that debunks that instantly. And I don't watch the All In podcast too often, but I watched it this past weekend because Larry Summers, like the worst Treasury Secretary we've ever had, was on, and he was trying to argue that the Clinton idea to let China into the World Trade Organization did not destroy America's manufacturing. So we might talk about that. We'll see. But a lot of stuff to get into. I mean, first, let's check out this bank thing. I think we got to do that because I think that's the most important thing. Nobody's talking about it probably because they don't understand it, but Bloomberg laid it out pretty nicely. So let me give you a quick rundown on what's going on with that. So you guys know Citadel from the GME thing. Nobody really knew too much about it before that, but most profitable hedge fund in all of history, made $83 billion since it was created in 1990. And they're doing so well. They're building what's going to be the second tallest skyscraper in New York. That's going to be done in like 7 years. So things are going good for Citadel. Ken Griffin. I mean, you know Ken Griffin. He's worth $33 billion. He's so good at trading. He like back when he was in college, he was actually like managing money for his professors and doing pretty well with it. I mean, I wish that I was my age in the 70s. That was a nice time to crush it in the stock market. But anyway, so shadow banks are too big now to stay in the shadows. So look at this. So what we got? Shadow banks do a lot of work that commercial banks do without being hampered by strict government regulations. So that means hedge fund, it's like the role that like government contractors play. They do stuff that's like too crazy for the government to do. Shadow banks do stuff that's too crazy for banks to do. And they're operating at like a 12-to-1 debt to cash ratio on average, right? But the real crazy thing about this, though, is that they're using money from money market accounts. You know, like the place that you were told is safe to put money to get a quick 5% return every year. A lot of retirement accounts are attached to that. And they pull money out of that and just gamble with it. So if anything goes wrong, the money market funds are going to be bled out and they're going to tell you that your retirement's not there anymore. So the Fed's already putting together this bailout plan, which I think would be like the clearest sign possible that nothing is changing if Trump goes ahead and allows a bailout again. Because, you know, mark my words, something's going to happen. Like it's like what we've built for ourselves. It's like when what California did with the forest fires, where they just let a ton of that flammable brush stuff build up over years and years and years. When you're supposed to have controlled burns, they don't do it. They put it off. They neglect it for whatever reason. And then eventually just the smallest spark, like some hobo in the woods smoking a cigarette, lights the entire state on fire. That's what our financial system is essentially. Like, we have never allowed them to have feel serious pain in the last probably 50 years. Like, 1987 bailout, low rates. 2001 dropped the rates to 1%. 2008 dropped the rates to 0%. QE for the last 15 years. During COVID, pumped $3 trillion into the economy year one, and then $6 trillion overall over the course of 4 years. So never let our economy feel any serious pain. And, we just have a whole forest filled with flammable brush, to make an analogy that everybody can understand. And they're probably going to do the same thing here because it's such a disaster that everything will break if they actually allow us to feel some pain. But how does this conclude? What do we become Japan, where Japan literally is at 0% rates for the past 30 years because their market can't handle even the 0.1% rate? And then look what happens with that. You destroy your currency. So back to the article. So if downturns or brutal stresses arrive, the traders of these types of institutions aren't necessarily backstopped by central banks like the Federal Reserve. So as traditional lending banks can be. So central banks have had to step in and shore up wobbly banks in markets numerous times over the last century, including during the 2008 crisis, 2020, and the Silicon Valley thing. I forgot about that. So that one too. Funny thing, everybody says, and people were asking me the other day, if I'm FDIC insured, does that mean that the bank will give me, up to $250,000 no matter what, even if the bank goes under or the bank has a bank run on it? Yeah, in theory, but funny thing, I think I looked up the other day, I think there's $11 trillion worth of deposits, but only 200 billion in the FDIC's account. So they don't have anywhere close to the amount of money they would have to potentially cover if there was a series of bank runs, bank failures. But we'd probably just print money if we had to. And that just destroys the value of our money. So it's a net loss. I mean, it's so crazy to me that I heard some kid in my office say today, we got to get those stimmies again. The fact that people still don't realize that the stimulus checks were a net loss for everybody that doesn't have a ton of money invested in the stock market is crazy to me. You have a one-time payment of $1,500, but then permanent 20% inflation for the next 10 years if you really add it up properly, not the way the government does. So Bloomberg goes on to say, as markets tank again in response to Trump's Liberation Day tariffs, there are real risks of a crisis of faith in the U.S. as a reliable world power. And crucially, it hurts in treasury bonds, which underpin shadow banking. Yeah, so treasury bonds, I try to kind of drill this into everybody's head as much as I can. It's the backbone of the entire world economy. They call U.S. treasuries the tier one collateral, the safest form of collateral you could have. When you borrow money, you put something up so that people feel safe about it. If you ask your friend to borrow $10,000, you let them borrow a $10,000 watch, then that's a reasonable form of collateral. And for whatever reason, I say that rhetorically, it's not for whatever reason. There's clearly an incentive that the government puts in place for people to find those desirable. But the financial world considers U.S. Treasury bonds the safest, most reliable form of collateral out there. So when they lose their value, it creates big problems because the same freaking bond gets borrowed and lent out 7 different times. So, you could use a bond as collateral, then the institution that you give it to as collateral can give it to another one as collateral. And then that could happen 7 to 10 times, really no cap on it. So there's just this series and series and series of bonds being used as collateral. If their value goes down even a little bit, big problems, margin calls, and then the whole thing falls apart. So that's why some experts are arguing for permanent shadow bank safety nets. There you go. If taxpayer funds need to be pledged to do that, then regulators will have to consider tighter supervision of shadow banks as well, even though some Republicans in Congress are calling for a rollback in potential federal oversight. So the players in the shadow banking world, Citadel, $65 billion hedge fund, and it doesn't have JP Morgan's $4 trillion fortress balance sheet, but it probably has as much, if not more, power to shape markets. The size and influence of major alternative asset managers has only grown since 2020, and the hedge fund industry has become more concentrated among the largest players like Citadel, D.E. Shaw, and Millennium. Hedge funds collectively now use more borrowed money to fuel their trades than at any time since the Fed began to collect data in 2013. So that's just an absolute recipe for disaster. So look at this chart. U.S. hedge funds borrowing hit record levels last year. So I don't think I need to explain the prime brokerage and repo market. That's kind of too in the weeds. So but it's more than ever before. Just know that. So with these secretive alternative institutions at the heart of the next financial crisis, will they be? Citadel and other big hedge funds argue they don't need more regulation because they're safer than banks. They say that locking up investor money for longer terms means they don't rely on the kind of panicky depositors who start bank runs. What the hell? So I logged out for a second. Oh, that was weird. All right. So with these secretive alternatives, here we go. With these secretive alternative institutions be at the heart. Yep. So it's certainly possible these big funds are more stable than most people imagine. Citadel offers a useful example of why that might be. So even the most well-managed firms are still vulnerable to system-wide shocks. When a major crisis hits, markets that normally seem uncorrelated can suddenly move together with a terrifying speed and distance between safety net and doom vanishes. Or as statisticians like to say, anyone interested in determining what might be done to prevent shadow banking-induced meltdown should ponder some recent financial history. Yep. So when Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008, many analysts and bankers hoped this would be an isolated failure, but federally backed lenders like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac also got swept into the emerging vortex, as did major U.S. banks like Washington Mutual and Wachovia. Soon after, giants like Citigroup Inc. and Bank of America needed financial life support as well. I just dropped a video about all this, so check that out if you want to know more about it. There's like so much that we don't know about 2008, or so much that the average person doesn't know, and we really got shafted in the biggest possible way. So total losses in 2008 exceeded $2 trillion. U.S. home prices fell by 1/5. Unemployment doubled to more than 10%, and America suffered its deepest recession since World War II. Politicians and financial regulators then created a wide-ranging rules to prevent the same thing from happening again. But even after 2008, there was still a market for risk. Private equity firms still wanted to buy sluggish businesses and load them up with potentially risky debt to drive greater payoffs when selling them on. And speculative arbitrage, which is buying and selling related assets in different markets and profiting off the price gaps, was still needed to help price bonds and derivatives and keep markets liquid. Investment banks did this work before 2008. Today, hedge funds have picked up the liquidity supporting functions, but without the limits on borrowing or reporting requirements that even standalone investment banks like Lehman Brothers had to observe. So they're being more risky than Lehman Brothers and have less oversight. And we haven't really had a difficult situation that kind of sheds light on this. So there could be some real nasty stuff ahead with these guys. Market-based finance has boomed far more than regulators ever expected. Globally, what regulators call non-bank financial intermediaries, the shadow banks, as well as pension funds and insurance companies, have grown at an average annual rate of 1.5 times faster than traditional lenders. Total shadow banking assets have more than doubled globally to $240 trillion. Among these funds, specifically involving supply credit to the companies and people, grew to $70 trillion, according to Financial Stability Board and a watchdog group. In the UK, almost all debt taken on by companies in Britain since 2008 has come from markets, not banks, according to the Bank of England. Process that. Banks are supposed to be the lenders. They're not doing any of the lending. It's coming from private markets. So that's some serious stuff. We don't know the ramifications of that. This is the first time this has ever been the scenario, and we haven't been allowed to have a serious market correction yet because we've just been putting on easy mode. It's like if you're at a bowling rally and you have the bumpers up, that's how our economy's been since 2008. So we have no idea, to stay with the analogy, how good of bowlers these guys are who run the hedge funds, run the banks and everything. They've made it impossible for them to fail virtually unless they're doing something absolutely crazy. So investment banking, commercial banking were once sharply divided in the U.S. they're talking about Glass-Steagall here. So very important thing, Glass-Steagall, the Glass-Steagall Act. After the Great Depression, the government said, hey, you crazy bankers, we have to divide commercial banking and investment banking into two different things, which basically said that the bank can't take your bank deposits and go use them to speculate and gamble with, because they lose a lot, and that's how banks fail. But the brilliant Bill Clinton and Larry Summers, like unbelievable. This guy is trying to not take blame for all the stuff that's happened with China, but they cooked up the idea that would be a good idea to repeal the Glass-Steagall Act. So they did that in 1999, and then a lot of people say that's what led to the housing crisis, because investment banks got bigger. Like between 1990 and the year 2000, the top 5 banks went from controlling like 25% of banking assets to I think 40% of it, and then today they own like 56% of it. And small banks just been obliterated, which if you saw Richard Warner on the PPD podcast the other day, he said like the lifeblood of a country, like of a good, healthy country with a healthy economy, is small banks, because they have to be more frugal about the type of loans they give out. These big banks just get into like giving out these crazy loans and like, these no income, no asset type of mortgages, all that crazy stuff. So that's a real problem. I'll show you a chart in a second, maybe of the small banks falling off a cliff. Ken Moelis, who founded his own small investment bank, Moelis & Co. in 2007, said he expected the 2008 crisis to force the financial world to revert to its divided pre-1999 state, meaning undo the repeal of Glass-Steagall. He thought that would happen slowly, however, as he told a conference in December, quote, "What surprised me is that it's not taken 30 years. Financing," he said, "is radically changing from a bank-centric market where it was for most of my career to an alternatives, life insurance, pension fund, sovereign wealth market. A plain vanilla banking and more high-flying shadow banking truly did inhabit different worlds that might offer some comfort to anyone worried about systematic risk. But this clean division is an illusion." So the mighty Citadel, the total assets of the hedge funds are more than 15 times greater today than in 2008. Mutual funds are still larger, but the big hedge funds are more influential because they trade more and can use borrowed money to amplify their firepower. Citadel is the most profitable hedge fund in history, at least by one measure. So I told you, 83 billion since 1990. These are the big 5: Citadel, D.E. Shaw, Millennium, Bridgewater, Elliott. The fund's success argues against instability fears that haunt shadow banking. That's due in part to Citadel's long track record, but its approach to borrowing and risk management are also major strengths. Citadel is a multi-strategy fund with hundreds of managers trading almost every market imaginable. This protects it against losses in any single area and makes it more attractive as a client to bank and brokers. Voluminous trading and diversification are virtues, particularly in the eyes of big banks that have been lending heavily to hedge funds, private asset managers, and other non-bank rivals. Direct lending by banks to financial firms, including hedge funds and private asset managers, has been the fastest growing part of the U.S. banking system. It hit $1 trillion last year, according to a recent Bloomberg News analysis. Multi-strategy funds are the biggest borrowing beast among the hedge funds. Their average gross debt is currently above $12 for each $1 in the fund. Highest ratio on record. According to the U.S. Treasury Department Office of Financial Research, that kind of leverage can amplify returns when invested successfully, but destroy capital faster when trades go wrong. The demise of long-term capital management, that's a big one. In 1998 is a vivid reminder of how swift and ugly such debacles can be. And a lot of people say long-term capital was a big money laundering money laundering type of venture, allegedly. We definitely talk about that another day because there's some fascinating stuff there and really crazy. Like they let people think they got ripped off, but it was like a money laundering operation. I've been finding some crazy stuff the last couple of days, guys. I've been finding some crazy stuff, especially with that missing 36 trillion from the Pentagon, but stay tuned. So Citadel has built uncommon defense against those scenarios that make it less vulnerable to panicky lenders. Unlike peers, Citadel has issued $1.6 billion of investment-grade public bonds. That's a small part of its overall borrowing, but it does not need to be repaid for 5 years. No other hedge fund has gone as far as issuing investment-grade debt to lock in funding for longer terms that insulates them from short-term market disruptions. Citadel has long. Oh, here we go. Okay, this clip started playing on over. Sorry. All right, where was I? So Citadel may be an isolated example. However, the top 10 hedge funds, the top 10 U.S. hedge funds more than doubled their repo borrowings since the start of 2023 to $1.43 trillion. So the repo market is this crazy thing that the Fed has set up where it's basically if the banks don't have enough money at the end of the day, they get to borrow money from other banks. So that's what the federal funds rate is. That's like the overnight borrowing rate for bank-to-bank lending. I mean, it's crazy. It's the only thing in the world where, like, you know, businesses can't do that. They can't say like, oh, I don't have enough money today to pay the rent. Like, hey, buddy over there, could you lend me this for the day? And then I'll, you know, issue new money to pay you back. So banks are operate on a different playing field. And if you ever hear the word repo market, repo purchases, it's just like overnight bank-to-bank lending or Fed-to-bank lending, et cetera, et cetera. So that's at an all-time high. And quick thing, in 2019, right before COVID, the repo market exploded. I'll show you that in a second if you're interested. But that's usually a sign of bad things to come. And although mega funds might try to mimic Citadel's approach, the data on how prudently they're actually managing the terms of their funding isn't available. That leaves central bankers in the dark about their vulnerabilities. Where might those weaknesses reside? Big investment banks increasingly finance multi-strategy hedge funds on a portfolio basis, meaning they lend against trades cumulatively rather than individually. The idea is that the risks of some bets should balance out others, making banks feel more comfortable about lending. Diversification feels like insulation until it doesn't. The COVID-19 pandemic proved the point in 2020 when there weren't any safe havens. Portfolio lending can also transmit losses from one market to another. If a hedge fund's trades and corporate bonds go wrong, for example, it might sell other assets such as treasuries to meet lenders' demand for cash, stressing government bond markets. Or the problem could start in government debt markets. Hedge funds trading also affects other asset managers along shadow banking chain, which is where the risks of sudden instability are least well understood. Consider treasury basis trades, a form of highly leveraged arbitrage that keeps the treasury market humming along. While extreme leverage itself is inherently risky, basis trades also play a role in supplying credit to companies and a phenomenon that has been under-examined. So they're talking about corporate debt right there, the corporate bond market. And apparently that's one of the scariest things for everybody in this economic ecosystem is when the corporate bond market kind of shits the bed. Like that was the first thing to really go. And apparently the vast majority of funding and revenue for companies is from the corporate bond market. Like a lot of companies can't operate their day-to-day payments and functions without the corporate bond market. So if this thing like sells off and rates go high, or if it gets really expensive, like it throws the whole thing out of whack. So I think that was the first thing the Fed started pouring money into during COVID because they just totally freaked out when the corporate bond market went off. Let me see if I can pull up a chart with that quick. Corporate bond markets. All these things that sound boring, but very important to the things you care about, because this thing shits the bed, then your 401k could shit the bed. Chart. Here we go. Do they have good charts for this? Yeah, they do, I think. Yeah, we'll come back to that. Anyway, a basis trade typically involves buying treasury bonds and selling treasury futures, but mutual funds are some of the biggest buyers of treasury futures to support the corporate debt investments. If hedge funds had to rapidly unwind basis trades under duress, or regulators suddenly imposed tough limits on leverage, lending from markets to companies would likely shrink too, hurting the economy. Yeah, that's their number one fear, is the shriveling up of that access to debt market for American companies. Most importantly, hedge funds are at the mercy of the money market funds. There you go, your retirement account. the source of much of their borrowed cash. These instant access cash funds have doubled in size to nearly 11 trillion worldwide since 2008. According to the FSB, and are considered super safe because they're mainly meant to own stable government debt. But in the US, money market funds lent up to 1/3 of their cash into the shadow banking system by swapping it for treasuries for short periods of time, according to research from the Bank for International Settlements. The risk is overt because many traders are ultimately financed with short-term funding, the opposite of the strategy Citadel uses to try to reduce term risk. Okay. Money funds are the de facto depositors in the shadow banking system, and their investors can demand their cash back at any time. That's not good. Who bears the risk of this so-called maturity transformation in the now you see it, now you don't world of shadow banking? It's partly big hedge funds themselves and partly the repo brokers that source funding, and those brokers are often part of big banks. So that's part of what the problem with Silicon Valley Bank. What happened with them is that they had a lot of bonds in their balance sheet, and like the bonds lost a lot of value, but the bonds got called back before they expected to have to sell them. So they had to show that loss when they had to give the bonds back. You know, if they were able to wait and let the bonds go back to a normal level, then it wouldn't have been a problem. But they lost, like whatever, 30% of their value because rates started going up, and they had to sell them at a loss. So they suddenly had this giant loss in their balance sheet, and then people got wind of it, started withdrawing the money, and then the whole thing falls apart. So the money market fund and the repo loans to shadow banks are booming. So look at this, and this is just in the past couple of years. Interesting that starts in 2018. That's worth looking into why it's doing that. So when did this thing really start? Really started in 2024. That gets like crazy. That's strange. So obviously the light blues banks, the dark blues non-banks, like these shadow banks. So connections across market and fund types and the hedge fund fulcrum on which they rest are all underappreciated. Big hedge funds are better managed in many ways today than the long-term capital management was in the 1990s. But there are many more of them now. They're much bigger and more influential, and their borrowings on average are at record level highs. A failure today would likely be far more damaging to the wider system. So what should regulators do? Bloomberg asks. Klaus Knott, president of the Nederlandse Bank, is not popular in hedge fund land. He currently chairs the Financial Stability Board, a group of global central bank chiefs and regulators. He has launched task forces to investigate shadow bank leverage and how big hedge funds might spark or accelerate sell-offs. Watchdogs like Knott can end up focusing too tightly on specific firms and activities when they should be examining the entire shadow banking chain instead. Any regulatory system that works will have to subject all large hedge funds to stricter guardrails and treat them more like banks. Some backstops are already being considered or are in place. A group of academics recently urged the Fed to set up a lending facility for major hedge funds that could be deployed if a crisis arose in treasuries. The Bank of England has opened a new lending window for pension funds and insurers to protect the UK government debt markets from a repeat of the near meltdown that occurred in 2022. Just to set the record clear, a lot of people believe that it was the IMF that attacked Europe's bond or England's bond market in 2022 because they didn't like who became the prime minister. What was her name? The woman who was there for like 2 months. She has like a one syllable name. I'm gonna look it up because it's gonna drive me crazy. UK woman prime minister. 2 years ago. Oh, Liz Truss. There you go. Boom. Okay. Doesn't drive me crazy. So yeah, I think that was an attack by the people who didn't like her policies because it's really easy to push around the bond market of a smaller country, but story for another day. So expanding the central bank support to hedge funds would be very unwise when the Trump administration and the House Republicans want to reverse a Biden-era policy that gave regulators a route to greater oversight of shadow banks. Man. Reforms shouldn't mean setting strict limit on how many dollars hedge funds can borrow per dollar of capital, as has been floated by the FSB. That's too blunt. The industry has correctly pointed out a fund levered at 10 to 1 that invests mostly in government debt is far less likely to get wiped out than a fund that puts the same amount of borrowed money into stock markets. I mean, the bond market still fluctuates pretty crazily, and if you have to sell it before you intended to or before you want to, then you're in trouble if you have to take that loss. Because if you wait till maturity, then you get your full money back. But if you have to sell before maturity and it's lower, if the rates are higher than it was before, that means the price is lower, and then you lose money. So what's needed is a set of complementary guardrails, including a simple leverage ratio models of the worst losses likely over each month and year, a measure of spare cash at hand. These three gauges are akin to how regulators controlled banks since 2008. Risk-based capital, leverage, and liquidity. Seeing clearly how different mega funds manage their risk and borrowing terms would help the Fed decide whether any firm is too aggressive and could signal appropriate operating limits for all. Much more transparency is needed. Regulators should require shadow banks to report much more, at least confidentially, about their balance sheet management. Regulators and central banks can then think more clearly about the systematic risk of today's big, influential, interconnected funds. Let's see. I think we're good on this. All right. Yeah. So any questions about this? Because the main takeaway of this is that there's a problem. Everybody's saying it, just like at one point in time before. And the Fed is being encouraged to set up a bailout hedge funds. And I saw a channel saying the other day that it could be as much as $2 trillion the Fed gives out. Is this one we just looked at? See, Bloomberg was like, so this isn't an older article than the one we just looked at. The first line: the Federal Reserve should consider setting up an emergency program that would close out highly leveraged hedge funds trades in the event of a crisis in the $29 trillion U.S. Treasury market, according to a panel of financial experts. Get that shit out of here. What do you guys think about that? I know Alan loves that. I know, yeah, I know you're all about that. Let's talk about Tim Pool, because this guy is falling apart. Let me look at the comments quick though, too. All right, just 1 second on that, because he says some crazy stuff here. Send him next, Alan. Oh, guys, by the way, we had like the greatest conversation yesterday on the Zoom call for the next group. It was me, Andrew, Leah. Who else was in there? What was it? David. And yeah, we just had the sickest conversation like for 2 hours yesterday. And really cool thing that we're doing there. We finished the 2 books of the One Nation Under Blackmail, and we're going to do The Art of the Deal next and zoom through that. Because I think it'd be a good way to get ourselves inside Trump's head. So check that out if you're interested. All right, let's talk about what Tim Pool's doing here. I'm trying to understand it, but like, how do you take the side of like this kid who stabbed the other kid? Like, that's what he literally comes out and says, I'm confused by the story. Are we against self-defense now? Like saying about the kid who stabbed that kid who was the twin brother at a party, like Tim Pool's sounding like he's on that side of things. Like, what? Watch.
What is it? Nothing matters but this. He was at a school event at the wrong team's tent with a knife. He clearly chose murder than to walk away, cut and dry here. Nope, wrong. Imagine you are invited to a party at someone else's house and you are legally carrying a firearm. And then a fight breaks out and you, or like an altercation breaks out between you and some guy and, you know, there's drinking involved or whatever. I'm not trying to make a 1-for-1 scenario. I'm trying to create a potential scenario separate from this one with similarities. You go to a party. No, yeah, let's say you go to a party. And some guy starts saying stuff like, yo, man, get out of here. And you're like, I can do what I want. I was invited to the party. Verbal altercation escalates. And then the dude, You're standing there and you pull your sweater back and you've got a gun. You put your hand up and say, don't come close to me, bro. I'm warning you right now. Do not come close. Do not take another step. Then the guy grabs your arm and makes a move. So you draw your weapon and you use it. Okay. Make the argument. You have no right to defend yourself when you're being attacked by a guy. Make the argument. By all means, go ahead and do so. I ain't going to do it. I don't know the circumstances. You can argue that you're in a place you're not supposed to be. You can argue it's that guy's house, and it doesn't matter. A guy can invite you into your neighbor could be like, come on over, brother. And then if he gets physical with you, you can defend yourself. And then what? The police are going to be like, well, you were in his house. And it's like, yeah, you invited me in. It's like, the door was open. And
like, what are you doing, dude? Why? Like, are you trying to make yourself relevant again? I don't understand. Like, that's one of the easiest things out there, to be on the right side of it. You're doing that.
the one where he says
that. I think that kills your reputation. I mean, if the Russia thing wasn't bad enough where you were accidentally taking money from Russia, like now you're going to go do this. Like, is he trying to be controversial? Is he trying to have the unique take that everybody talks about? And I know we're talking about it now, but there's a thing called a reputation, what was it? The 48 Laws of Power says your reputation's everything. Guard with your life. So you want to be known as the kid who's defending the kid who stabbed a kid for telling them to leave a party? And look at it. Took you long enough. Unfollowed a couple years ago. Honestly, worst take. Do you unfollow people you disagree with like a child? Oh, God. Not interested in debating if anyone thinks murder is justified. This guy's a weird guy, by the way. He's like Elon Musk's personal hype man. So that wasn't the only thing that Tim did, though. That wasn't the only thing. He also comes out and talks about how he met with Netanyahu when he wasn't supposed to talk about it. Look.
I wasn't here. I got late word that I was invited to a private roundtable meeting with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was under what's called Chatham House rules. For those that are not familiar, this means
Chatham
that you cannot
House.
reveal anybody who attended, nor attribute anything to any one individual, as they can deny it, and they would. However, what I love about what the White House is currently doing, when you bring together a bunch of influencers and podcasters who don't know much about journalism culture, whatever you want to call it, not that we respect it tremendously, most people didn't know what Chatham House meant. So with all due respect, it's funny because they bring us into the Blair House, which is where Netanyahu was staying. And immediately people are walking around with their cameras, their phones up. They actually took our phones from us. And I legit thought they would maintain Chatham House rules, meaning you can't quote the prime minister, you can't quote his officials and the other people who were there, but you can report what was said generally. If you wanted an official quote on a specific matter, you would then ask an official once the meeting was wrapped, and they provide you the exact quote. Or they would just say outright, we ain't putting our quotes on that one.
So why is Tim Pool meeting with Netanyahu? What could that be about? I mean, that just makes me think about when old Tim Pool was talking about working at the Daily Wire for a little bit. So I thought it was a reasonable thought experiment to just go over to his X account and do a search for Israel and see if he's changed his tune at all on it, or if there's any trends here. So let's see. I go to Tim Pool, you type in Israel. He says Israel derangement syndrome. Okay. I don't see how Israel maintains U.S. support with current actions in the U.S. and the sweeping change amongst Gen Z. 10 years, U.S. support for Israel is in question. 20 years, it's gone. He said U.S. deploys around 100 troops to Israel, boots on the ground. So is that trying to undermine that? Is he trying to downplay it? Oh, that was an old one. Said I made 2,300 on X this pay period. Got to step up my game and getting replies. Let's try this, Israel. Then he tweets the flag. I think the fastest path to making money on X is support Israel. Biden taking credit for Israel ceasefire. Now pro-war. Must fund Israel and Ukraine. I think that's that's gotta be a sarcastic one. Me, China has no free speech. Jake, Tim works for Israel. Yeah, so Tim might have gotten some. I don't know. You think Tim got some instructions? I don't know. But the Chatham House thing, if you don't know what Chatham House is, like I know like that's used, the context he's using it in is like for a secret meeting, but Chatham House, like the actual thing, is a real creepy thing if you don't know what it is. It's like the RIIA is the original name for it. And I found that name in the book called The Committee of 300. And it's said to be the institution that basically sets foreign policy for the United States. And they later renamed themselves the Chatham House after being called the RIIA, the Royal Institute of International Affairs. So whenever I hear that name, I think weird thoughts. But I mean, not nearly as weird as Tim Pool having a covert meeting with the president of Israel, and also talking about working for the Daily Wire. But I don't know, the Daily Wire's having some trouble, so maybe that didn't work out. I don't know. Like, I thought the Russia thing was a genuine mistake where he was taking money from Russia to say whatever he was saying. But if it comes out that he's taking money from somebody else that he may have met with just now, then who else is going to trust this guy? You know, I've always found kind of annoying anyway. Like, he's extremely condescending when he speaks. And he's got kind of like a ratty looking face, just an annoying face. But no, at first I thought he was a smart dude, but then he got annoying, and now he's trying to do the thing where he says the crazy thing that everybody reacts to. So I don't think that ages well in this industry. I mean, sure, he's been in here longer than me, but I think people like destroy themselves in this eventually if they try to be something they're not or get caught lying too much. I mean, I think that's why Rogan's done so well, is because like he's just like radically himself, and people can sense that, and people love that. So I don't think Tim is like radically himself. I think he's constantly like shape shifting, trying to morph into what he thinks the market wants him to be. I think the best way to do this is like just be extremely like the fullest extent of yourself, and then you know the market says what it says. You know, either people like it or they don't like it. I don't know like what's gonna happen with me. Don't know what's gonna happen with Tim. Don't know what's gonna happen with Joe. But I think, yeah, just opinion. What my gut tells me is that like the most sustainable thing possible is if you're just like absolutely 100% yourself, and then whatever happens, happens. So, Tim, I hope you enjoyed the 8 o'clock slot, because we're coming for it. They get like 40,000 live. We got like 100 to 200 live right now, but I think this thing could grow pretty quickly. So we'll see what happens. Moving on. Let's hit this. Did I hit everything with that? Yeah, I hit everything with that. Let's go to this Bezos thing. I don't even know why this happened. I don't know why. Well, again, I say that rhetorically. All right, let's do it.
Be able to do this.
It's stupid.
And I have so much gratitude that we're able to be able to do this. It's not about going to space. It's about what we bring back.
My 92-year-old grandfather is making the journey to see the flight.
I'm going to be very emotional this weekend.
This journey really is about healing. It's just that my healing takes me to the stars.
It's never too late to fulfill your dreams.
All of them said, I think you should do it. All of them, much to my surprise, including Oprah.
It's a big journey.
It's huge.
Oh, shut up. I had no idea this was happening. Did anybody have any idea this was happening? People started sending it to me like at 8 a.m. in the morning. And I don't know, like, do we even believe they went? Yeah, I'll do it. I'll be the one who says it. Like, do we even believe they went? I'm like, what? Let's see if we could find a better video. I literally haven't even looked into this one bit. Somebody said to me this morning. I'm like, oh, that was my reaction. Just like, oh, like, really? We're using our resources just to say we sent a full team of women to space. Bezos, space. Yeah. Let's see. Oh, did you guys see this? So Bezos bust his ass going to open the door all excitedly.
out here with our audience. So it's been really, really incredible. So yeah, audience. So it's been really, really incredible.
He's still goofy. What's this one?
Where's Carrie Ann?
Just before or after? And play the music. I just want to know what the point of this was, to be real. Bezos space. Like, why'd they feel the need to do an all-woman crew? All right, let's see. Actually, no, let's go to a liberal newspaper and see how they're pitching it. Does the Guardian count as liberal? Maybe. Let's check it out. No, paywall. Guardian's not doing too good. Blue Origin all-female flight launches to edge of space with Gayle King, Katy Perry, and Lauren Sanchez on board. A crew of 6 women took part in Monday's space flight, the latest launch for Jeff Bezos' space tourism company. Blue Origin completed its latest space flight to Monday with a historical all-female crew. The mission, NS-31, was the 11th human flight for Jeff Bezos' space tourism company. What a stupid thing, too, by the way. Like, space tourism. Actually, I don't know. Maybe you could. I think you get rich people to pay for anything. So if they make it like in this astronomical price, you'll get rich people to pay for that. Including 6 women: aerospace engineer Aisha Bowe, activist Amanda Nungan, CBS morning host Gayle King, pop singer Katy Perry, and film producer Carrie Ann Flynn, and Lauren Sanchez, an author. TV host turned philanthropist and Bezos' fiance. The crew boarded the capsule atop the fully autonomous New Shepard rocket in Van Horn, Texas, early Monday morning. Rocket took them past Kármán line 62 miles above Earth, which some international aviation and aerospace experts consider the threshold of space, allowing the crew to experience a few minutes of weightlessness before returning safely to Earth in a capsule that employed 3 parachutes as it touched down on the desert floor. Is there a video of this thing from start to finish? Like, imagine if this went wrong, though. Like, that is a serious show of confidence for him to, unless he doesn't like his fiance, for him to launch them up there. Let's see. Is there a start to finish video with this? No?
Thank you so much.
Where's the footage? Light. Where is the footage? All right, so immediate red flag, unless we...
because
here we go.
It's a thing I've wanted to...
No, that's not even it. Where's the freaking footage? All right, these are all old. Rocket launch. Let's see. All female space flights. Oh, is this it?
Welcome to space, ladies, or shall I say,
come on.
astronauts.
That's the best we got? I've seen no evidence of them being in space yet. I'm going to be that guy. Okay, what's this?
1, 2, 3, taking up space!
Tamir's in space.
It's okay. Leave Flynn up there. Flynn, bye.
Flynn, I gotcha. I gotcha, Flynn.
Gotcha. Proud of you, Flynn. Oh, the moon. You guys, I will have to tell you, look at the moon.
That's amazing. Wow, look at the blue line.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goddess.
Wow.
Oh my That's our pink moon.
Okay.
They're clunking her and kicking around way too much.
Oh my
Space
gosh.
colonies.
So much. Oh my gosh.
Stop slamming into stuff.
Whoa. That's amazing.
All right, I'll give it 60% chance that it happens. Oh man, I hate everything about this. But it was a good publicity stunt. Like, I mean, people are talking about much more than they would have otherwise. So whatever. Moving on. Let's see. Oh, so this was stupid. So for the finance guys in here, you know Janet Yellen. So look what the dumb thing she said today. And then I'm gonna show why she's wrong, because it literally she got proved wrong like minutes after she said this.
Bring back, perhaps it's to bring back American manufacturing, but I really think that's a pipe dream and not something that is likely to be accomplished. And we could even raise questions about whether or not, in a broad-based way, that's a desirable goal. Perhaps.
Way to maintain your reputation as the worst Treasury Secretary and worst Federal Reserve Chairman ever in American history. Like, what a stupid thing to say. Not only is it not feasible to bring back manufacturing, but it's not desirable. That's literally the wealth of a nation. Literally, like, nations get rich from being a manufacturing powerhouse, and then, yeah, you get richer, and then it gets more expensive to pay people to build stuff. So, the natural cycle of it is to offshore things, but we made that too easy for China and kind of shot ourselves in the foot. But like, here's direct proof that this was a stupid thing to say. Like within an hour of her saying this, news comes out. NVIDIA announces for the first time they will manufacture AI supercomputers in the United States. This is huge. They said they're going to announce, or they're going to invest like $500 billion into the U.S. This is huge. So, yeah, from CNBC, NVIDIA to mass produce AI supercomputers in Texas as part of a $500 billion U.S. push. So remember, the ways that countries can raise money is either through consumer spending, consumption, government spending, exports, or foreign investment. So the bad ways, the unhealthy ways are consumer spending and government or consumption and government spending. The good ways are exports and foreign investment. So foreign investment, that's what this is. So $500 billion being invested into America, probably going to have a shit ton of jobs. So here's the deets on that. NVIDIA, the chip maker that powers much of today's artificial intelligence boom, on Monday announced a push to produce NVIDIA AI supercomputers entirely in the U.S. for the first time. You know where they do it now? Largely in Taiwan. That could be taken by China any day. So this is a great thing overall in every possible way. The company said it plans to produce up to $500 billion of AI infrastructure in the U.S. via its manufacturing partnerships over the next 4 years. Adding American manufacturing helps us better meet the incredible and growing demand for AI chips and supercomputers, strengthens our supply chain, and boosts our resilience, CEO Jensen Huang said. The news comes after President Donald Trump, in a push to take on the trade deficits and pressure companies to onshore more manufacturing to the U.S., imposed high reciprocal tariffs on a long list of countries. Trump placed a 32% tariff on Taiwan, products from Taiwan, where NVIDIA largely manufactures its graphics processing units, or GPUs, and 145% tariffs on products from China. Move that threatened to take toll on giants like Apple, which makes iPhones and most fits other products in China. Blah, 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 blah. So you get the point. And word on the street is that Apple's going to be doing the same thing, I believe. Let's see. Apple investment in America. I just want to know what the hell compelled Janet Yellen to say such a stupid thing like that. I'm actually going to look that up. But yeah, Apple will spend more than $500 billion in the U.S. over the next 4 years from February 24th. All right, so same deal. Like, this is what moving manufacturing back to America looks like. So could the thing be more expensive because we're not paying slave labor wages for it to be produced? Yeah, okay. But ideally, these things produce higher paying jobs than we have right now. So the overall wages go up in America and taxes goes down. So yeah, cost up, wages up, tax down should be a net positive. But also we're going to have like a stockpile of the important stuff we need in our country for it in case we have like a hostile situation with China. We're not relying on freaking Taiwan that's right next to China to deliver the most important stuff that we need for, the future of where technology is going. Let's see. Janet Yellen manufacturing. Oh, it's from the Daily Wire. Janet Yellen, who served as the Treasury Secretary in Biden administration, faced a reality check on Monday after saying that she thought the idea of bringing manufacturing back to the United States was a pipe dream, dismissing one of the goals of President Donald Trump. Within hours, just like I said, Yellen making comments on CNBC. Top semiconductor, NVIDIA unveiled plans to fully build the AI supercomputers. That is hilarious. Yeah, so exactly. Is everybody making fun of her because of this? Nope, just the Daily Wire. But yeah, no, exactly. So I'm really interested. Like, I would genuinely speak to this dipshit and ask her why she thinks that's both bad and also unfeasible. I don't think she understands the economy one bit, but like somehow she was the freaking Federal Reserve Chairman and the Treasury Secretary, and this is how she thinks. So that's why we are where we are right now, because she had like the two most powerful positions in the economy for about, was it 8 years? Let's see. Let's look at her resume quick. Like, think about that. Who else has been the freaking Treasury Secretary and the Federal Reserve Chairman? And this broad gets that? This stupid broad? Look, so 2014 to 2018 Fed Chairman, and 2010 to 2014 Vice Fed Chairman. Then under Biden, she was Treasury Secretary. Like, that's insane. Oh, yeah. Then, like, she was always at one of these things. She was the president of the San Francisco Fed from 2004 to 2010. Chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. Like, who the hell deemed this lady a smart economic mind? Like, where did she freaking... Oh, there you go. Where'd she freaking go to school? PhD, Yellen obtained assistant professor at Harvard. At the time, she was one of only 2 female faculty members, Harvard Economic Department. And Paris struck up close friendship, or later several academic papers together. Blah blah blah. How'd you get to the Fed? 1977. Yellen took a job at the Federal Reserve Board of Governors after failing to win tenure at Harvard. She was recruited as a staff economist for the Board of Governors by Edwin Truman, who had known her from Yale. Truman was a junior professor when he heard Yellen's oral exam, and was then about to take over the Fed's division of international finance. She was assigned to research and international monetary reform. Great job. While at the Fed, she met her husband, economist George Akerlof, in the bank's cafeteria. Married in 1978, blah, blah, blah. 1980, Yellen joined the faculty at Berkeley. That's where she probably became super socialist. Man, see, look, even if you're a complete idiot, if you meet the right people, you could have the most powerful jobs in the world. It's a cautionary tale, but also life advice, life lesson. Meet the right people, and there's no limits to what you could do. All right. What else we got? This freaking thing with Josh Shapiro. So I'm sorry to always be the guy who asks like the weird questions, but like, am I wrong in assuming, like, I always thought that the governor of a state had Secret Service on him all the time, or at least some degree of significant security around his house. So how the hell did somebody get to the front of his house and firebomb it and light his house on fire while they're sleeping? Like, there's no security there? Doesn't the governor have Secret Service? So I intentionally picked out the super liberal New York Times to see how they report this, because it's always a good time. So, suspect charged in arson at Pennsylvania governor's mansion. A man was charged with setting fire to the residence, forcing Governor Shapiro and his family to flee. Investigators said they found beer bottles with gasoline inside the house. Pennsylvania state authorities have arrested and charged Harrisburg man. They said set fire to Governor mansion while Governor Shapiro and his family slept, forcing them to evacuate early Sunday before the blaze severely damaged part of the building. The man identified as Cody Balmer, 38, jumped a fence and managed to evade the state troopers after he broke into the building, and the authorities said he fled the scene and was arrested after turning himself into the police on Sunday afternoon. Officials said at a news conference, turned himself in. Interesting. Mr. Balmer was charged with attempted murder, arson, and terrorism. Dauphin County District Attorney Office said early Monday. During a news briefing on Sunday outside the fire-scarred mansion, Governor Shapiro, a Democrat who gained national prominence last year when he was on the short list of possible running mates for Kamala Harris, said that the FBI was assisting the investigation. The smell of smoke lingered in the air as he spoke with the blackened, broken windows where the arsonist had struck visible behind him. All right, so let's go on over to X because I got some questions. I'm going to ask Grok, and then I haven't watched this video yet. Here we go. Let's see. Let's first do Josh Shapiro. What do you say?
So I can confirm at this point, as we put out already, we are conducting an arson investigation and we're conducting an attempted homicide.
All right, we got it. This is the guy. Interesting. Looks like no, I'm not gonna say it.
Lori and I are overwhelmed by the prayers and the messages of support that we've received from all across Pennsylvania and all across the United States. We've heard from our fellow governors and first spouses. We've heard from several of the former governors of Pennsylvania. We've heard from so many friends and loved ones. We've heard from so many caring citizens of this great Commonwealth. I want you all to know that your prayers lift us up. And in this moment of darkness, we are choosing to see light. We appreciate the light that you have shined upon us. Pennsylvania State Police, led by Colonel Christopher Paris, will brief on the specifics of what transpired. But we do know that this attack was targeted. We don't know the person's specific motive yet, but we do know a few truths. First, this type of violence is not okay.
All right. First thing there, if it's not okay, why are you letting it happen to other people? What, you're upset because it finally happened to you? Like, you created these circumstances, dude. Like, the place is a shit show. It's a hellhole compared to what it used to be. Like, and people literally call it like fentanyl Philly because like it's the fentanyl capital of the world. Like, people say they had like these great neighborhoods just 20 years ago in Philadelphia that you can't even walk through right now because it's just been decimated. So this is on you to a large degree, Josh Shapiro.
This kind of violence is becoming far too common in our society.
In your state.
And I don't give a damn if it's coming from one particular side or the other. Directed at one particular party or another, or one particular person or another. It is not okay.
Then freaking act like it. You're not acting like it. Not at all. Like, everybody in your state feels the way you feel right now. You know how many people have been attacked by just random criminals in the street in Pennsylvania and Philadelphia over the last 4 years?
And it has to stop.
Then stop it.
We have a responsibility to all be better.
Be better, governor. You have control over this.
Second, if this individual was trying to deter me from doing my job as your governor, rest assured I will find a way to work even harder than I was just yesterday.
Please work hard at stopping crime. Like, you're like the Gavin Newsom of the East Coast.
Good people of Pennsylvania. Here's a third truth. If he was trying to terrorize our family, our friends, the Jewish community who joined us for a Passover Seder in that room last night, hear me on this. We celebrated our faith last night proudly, and in a few hours, we will celebrate our second Seder of Passover again proudly. No one will deter me or my family or any Pennsylvanian from celebrating their faith openly and proudly.
Yeah, Josh, let's keep this about policy and in keeping strong law enforcement presence. Like, you're one of the most dangerous states in the country over the last couple of years. So I think the entire state feels the exact same way that you feel. Like, yeah, it sucks when it happens to you, but a lot of people in your state feel the same way. So be serious about stopping crime, and then this is going to be less likely to happen to you. But you have to look up. Like, I was under the impression that governors had security or Secret Service. So I'm just going to ask Grok right now, what type of security do governors have? Because same thing as the Pelosi thing. Like, there's nobody out there. That is the question. Governors in the United States typically provide security by state law enforcement agencies, most commonly through specialized units with state police or highway patrol. The level and type of security vary by state, threat level, and context, but key elements include executive protection units. Many states have dedicated units, such as Missouri's Governor and Security Division or Indiana's Executive Protection Section, tasked with protecting the governor, their immediate family, and sometimes other state officials like Lieutenant Governor, blah, blah, blah. Protection includes advanced threat assessment, secure transportation, and surveillance of the governor's residence. So there you go. And surveillance of the governor's residence or mansion. Some states like California may increase security for high-profile governors. Coordination with other agencies. So is a governor's house typically guarded at night? That is the question. Yes, a governor's residence is typically guarded at night, though the extent and visibility of security depend on the state and specific circumstances. Most states provide 24/7 protection for the governor's mansion or official residence through state police, highway patrol, or dedicated executive protection units. This often includes on-site presence, surveillance systems, and patrols. So, how was a man able to light Josh Shapiro's house on fire? Let's see what they cook up here. On April 13th, 2025, a man identified as Cody Balmer, 38, allegedly set fire to the Pennsylvania governor's residence in Harrisburg. When Josh Shapiro and his family were staying, according to reports, Balmer scaled an iron security fence around the property at around 2 a.m., evading the initial detection by state police. He broke a window on the south side of the mansion, entered, and threw a homemade Molotov cocktail made from beer bottles filled with gasoline into a room, igniting a fire. He then broke another window on the east side, entered the dining room, and set a second fire with another incendiary device before fleeing back over the fence. Jeez. The entire incident unfolded in several minutes. Security measures, including cameras, motion detectors, and on-site state troopers were in place. Again, security measures, including cameras, motion detectors, and on-site troopers were in place, but Balmer's quick action and the cover of darkness allowed him to breach the perimeter and act before it being intercepted. State police were aware of the breach and searching the grounds, but didn't apprehend him during the act. A trooper's alert led to the safe evacuation of Shapiro, his family, and guests with no injuries reported. Though the fires caused significant damage to the dining and piano rooms, Balmer later turned himself in, admitting to the arson, expressing hatred towards Josh Shapiro, though specific motives, including possible anti-Semitic intent tied to the Passover timing, are still under investigation. Let's see. Pennsylvania Governor Mansion. So that's what this place looks like. Let's see what this. All right, so here we go. So this is what the guy jumped. I mean, I'm sorry. Am I the crazy one for saying it's weird that a guy was able to jump this fence, break into a window, go in and run around and then leave? I think that's bizarre. It's either god-awful security or I don't know what. Like, I don't want to go out and sound crazy yet, but I mean, it's strange to me that this type of setup, being guarded by police with cameras, with motion sensors, you're able to scale the fence, break a window, get into the house, throw multiple Molotov cocktails and set them off in the house, and then you could still run outside and jump over the fence and get away, and then you have to turn yourself in. And the turning himself in thing is very, very weird. So don't want to jump to any conclusions yet. Just saying a lot of weird stuff. A lot of weird stuff. I mean, am I on an island here? Am I on an island here? Now it's time to chat, guys. see. This is an inside job, Mike says. The heck? Why is my StreamYard logo showing? That's weird. False flag season. I know. Didn't even realize the StreamYard thing is showing. That's weird. Because he is voluntary fall guy. That's what I'm saying. What's Jordan saying? Yeah, LMG, get in the circles group. Yeah, it was me, Jordan, Andrew, Leah, and Brooks yesterday. We talked for like 2 hours and talked about like dope stuff every weekend, like some current events, some about the books we're going through. And yeah, it's a sick group of people that we're getting together so far. But false flag or not with this Shapiro stuff. That's what I'm saying, Kevin. Like, again, you're telling me he jumped the fence, evaded security. The motion detectors didn't go off. The cameras couldn't see him. He broke in the window, set the things off, then got out and ran away. That sounds insane. Like, I was at 50-50 before even reading this because I didn't even look into it. But now I'm at like 90-10. Yeah, USAID dried up. I know. But the weird thing about USAID and Musk is that he has not, how should I say? He's not going after all the NGOs. Like, I've showed you guys how many NGOs there are before. Like, why isn't he going after the defense budget? Which I got some crazy stuff to show you about the defense budget, by the way. So just wait for that. But, we know there's a missing, unaccounted for $36 trillion. So why just USAID? Like, are we at the $1 trillion saved yet? I'm sorry. I had high expectations for Musk. Like, sorry for trying to hold him accountable. Hollywood collapses and the government assures the role of fanatical theater. No way. They're in bed together. I'm with you. You don't see the intricacies that are in here when it comes to the whole blackmail game. It runs very deep. It's rampant on the Dem side and also in Union Party Republicans. Yep. And that's why they did not bring up Trump being friends with Epstein too much, because I think even the Democrats are afraid to touch that. Yeah, that's true, Kevin. That's actually hilarious. The guy's name is Bomber, who firebombed Shapiro's house. Yep, Mike, I agree. Well, guys, I'm gonna go on ahead and jump off because still got to work out, still got to do some things and some stuff. But if you want to talk more, if you want to see what we're doing in the Circles group, best Circles group out there, check out the Forbidden Book Society. We're starting the Art of the Deal tomorrow, and yeah, we're gonna get inside the mind of Trump. Got inside the mind of the world of blackmail the last couple weeks. Now we're gonna get inside the mind of Trump, and then after that, we're gonna do something cool again. There's like an endless supply of stuff that we're gonna go through. And every Sunday we meet on Zoom and have a couple-hour conversation, and it's a really cool group of people. So check that out if you want, and I will see you later. Much love. We talk about the deep state, we talk about the globalists, inflation versus deflation.
Well, I mean, here at Mar-a-Lago.
I'm baffled that this isn't front page news.
Do you guys support a specific political party, or do you dislike both of them?
Oh, it worked like a charm on you guys.
Let's go, Brandon.